Hello and welcome to the Trading Bell. I'm KipKemboi. Now, in the globalized world, we have an opportunity to invest in different markets from the comfort of our houses. And today we are having a conversation about investing in Hong Kong. I'll be talking to Stephen Phillips, who's the Director General of Invest Hong Kong. Stephen, welcome to Trading Bell.
Thank you.
Quite interesting the way the global economy works. That today, from the comfort of my home, I can invest in Hong Kong from Kenya. And also vice versa. Somebody from a different economic system, country, can invest also in the Kenyan economy system. For starters, let's lay the foundation. What is Invest Hong Kong? What is it all about?
Well, Invest Hong Kong is a department of the Hong Kong SAR government, which helps international and indeed mainland Chinese investors to set up in our city to capture growth opportunities. And those opportunities can be in Hong Kong itself, in China, or in wider Asia. And our job is to help companies, and in the context of our discussion today, Kenyan companies identify what Hong Kong might mean for their business.
That's quite incredible. So let's talk of opportunities that are in Hong Kong that an investor in Kenya can take advantage of. In what sectors? What is the most vibrant sectors that come top of mind?
Well, I think there are two ways to actually look at Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is both a market in its own right. It's a city of 7.3 million people. It's a modern, advanced economy, sophisticated consumers, demanding businesses. But Hong Kong is also an international hub in Asia. So it also is a route to markets geographically. So I would cut it two ways. So if you look at the sectoral opportunities in Hong Kong, there are three broad areas. Firstly, we're probably most well known as one of the world's top financial centres. We're one of the top three actually in the world. So fantastic opportunities in traditional financial services, in banking, in asset management, in insurance. Fintech, though, is booming just as it is here in Kenya. And actually, it's one of the great opportunities we see for Kenyan fintechs to expand into Hong Kong. So fintech, a very vibrant ecosystem. We also have a great environment for family offices. So for wealthy investors from around the world to get access to deal flow and to assets in Asia using Hong Kong. So that's one broad sector. Like many other places in the world, we also have a very high focus on innovation and technology. And I'd like to highlight AI and robotics as one really key area. And there's many, many use cases in Hong Kong because of the big financial services industry. There's lots of data, so AI applications, very, very relevant to businesses in Hong Kong. We then have a burgeoning life sciences sector, which really goes all the way from the fundamental research in our world-class universities through commercialization, clinical trials in Hong Kong, and then the scale of the market in mainland China in particular, but also the rest of Asia.
That's quite incredible. So there are actually very different avenues that you can invest in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I mean, today you've met quite a number of innovators, especially startups in Kenya.
Yeah.
And you already having a very vibrant startup market. For a Kenyan startup, why should they look at Hong Kong?
Well, it's a good question. You know, startups obviously have their challenges, capital resources, human resources. But startups are really, really good at solving problems. So the very best in the world world actually can scale very rapidly. And Hong Kong is such a great environment for Kenyan startups, scale-ups, to be thinking about as a stepping stone to global markets. Perhaps traditionally Kenyan companies have looked more to Europe or to the US. But Asia, I think, is where the future lies, where the big growth will be. So as you say, today we've met with a number of really, really high quality startups. Fintech is one area where clearly Kenya is very strong. Interestingly, I think agtech is another area. Not of direct relevance to Hong Kong itself as a small urban area, but using Hong Kong to sell agtech into wider Asia is a phenomenal opportunity. And you've got some great solutions here in Kenya.
Oh, that's quite incredible. Agriculture tech, which is actually at the center as a country. We're talking about food security in the era of climate change. And also that brings in the issue of climate financing. How vibrant is that?
Great question. Hong Kong has a very deep green finance market, and we're also looking at green tech finance as well. What we have in Asia is a very, very large infrastructure need. So there's very deep markets in green bonds. The Hong Kong SAR government actually has done the first ever tokenized green bond to retail investors, which is pioneering stuff at the global level. So it's a theme that is going through the financial services sector.
Oh, that's quite encouraging, actually.
It is.
I'm glad you're pioneering that, because one of the aspects you've seen locally, like with the Nairobi International Finance Center, one of the incentives was if you are going through green financing, and I know we're talking about getting investors to Hong Kong, and I want to sort of balance the incentives for people investing in different markets. Green financing was one of the aspects, and sustainable financing at that. In terms of the incentives that lie within the market for investors, what are they in Hong Kong?
Well, specifically for issuers of green bonds, we have a subsidy for the professional fees related to a bond issuance. So that's one of the incentives. But I think the real incentive is the depth of the market and the ability to raise green finance. So it's just the ability to raise the volume that is needed. So I'd encourage Kenyan companies to think about it, and indeed in the longer term think about perhaps the Hong Kong Stock Exchange as a way to raise capital. But I wanted to come back to your point also. What we in Hong Kong believe is that a healthy trade and investment relationship really is a two-way street. Of course, in my day job, I want to see Kenyan investment in Hong Kong. But I also think it's equally important that we see more Hong Kong investors tapping into the opportunities here in Kenya.
Definitely.
Because that's what a healthy relationship is based upon.
Yeah, it's symbiotic,
Exactly.
give and take.
Exactly.
But are there barriers to this give and take that we can do away with, sort of to smoothen that kind of back and forth investment within the two sides?
Yeah, I think the main barrier is really lack of knowledge on both parts about respective markets. And that's one of the reasons that we have set up the team for Invest Hong Kong here in Nairobi. It's to give local companies that first-hand local access to the information that they need to make informed business decisions. And similarly in Hong Kong, we really have a high focus on helping Hong Kong companies understand the environment here in Kenya and indeed Africa more generally. So we have a sister organisation called the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, which also has a presence here in Nairobi. So they help on the Hong Kong exporter side and Hong Kong companies looking to invest here in Kenya.
Definitely. And post-COVID recovery for different markets, sort of, it has been different, depending on how buffered these different markets are. for the Hong Kong market? How's been that recovery?
It's varied very significantly by sector. So we've had some sectors that have been hard hit, tourism, retail, but our financial services sector and innovation and technology actually performed very strongly throughout COVID. So the big rebound is really in hospitality and retail, whereas the other sectors are just continuing building upon the growing momentum across Asia, particularly as China has opened up in the last few months. Because obviously, as the second largest economy in the world, it is the biggest engine of growth in the region.
Okay.